Let's also tell you that the debate over Nigeria's 2024 budget continues to escalate as Seun Onigbinde, co-founder of civic group Budgit, weighs in on the issue, echoing claims made by Senator Abdul Ningi regarding the lack of detailed project allocations. During an interview, Onigbinde affirmed Ningi's assertion that there were no detailed project allocations for approximately 3.7 trillion naira of the 28.78 trillion naira 2024 Appropriation Act. Addressing concerns raised by Senator Ningi about Nigeria running two concurrent budgets, Onigbinde clarified that while certain budget items like statutory transfers historically lack breakdowns, it doesn't imply the existence of separate budgets. He underscored the need for clarity regarding capital projects and expenditures by the federal government. He also emphasized the importance of a comprehensive breakdown of the budget to ensure transparency and accountability. To help us further give a perspective to this, I'm joined by a finance economy analyst, Eizu Uwaoma. Thank you so much for joining us on the news.
How are you doing today?
Very good. Now, we have all followed the drama at the Senate from the start leading up to the suspension of the whistleblower, that is Senator Abdul Ningi. What would you say are the key issues to be concerned about?
Okay, so first thing first, I think I'll sum this up in one word. There will be interests. There will be interest. Politics anywhere in the world has always been a game of interest, but there is supposed to be a threshold of acceptable interest. It's a battle of interest between regions and interest between self. So self-interest in the middle of that. I mean, it's not in a game of good versus bad, in my own opinion. It's interest. Business and politics in Nigeria is like dinner time. You're either on the table or you're on the menu. So clearly, it looks like the Senate right now has some people on the table and there's some people on the menu. If you're on the table, you're the one eating. And if you're on the menu, you're the one that they are eating. So I think some people who used to be on the table have moved to being on the menu, both on a regional level, right? And I think that's a fundamental challenge. However, I also think that there was a breach of privilege. Management Principles 101 reminds us of what you call hierarchy. Don't talk to the big boss, you talk to the small boss. Don't talk to the public until you dealt with the issues privately. So maybe there was too much, it was a bit too forward, right, in my own opinion, for that. But then, you can tell the level of personal disgruntledness that will lead someone to go into a national, another country's national broadcasting to lay his claim. And we don't know what the aim was supposed to be at that. But it also sort of shows you the organized chaos in the Senate and the lack of leadership and order. In the end, it's self-sabotage and the own goal to the parliament, which is supposed to be one of the most intellectual arm of the government. Sadly, it's not. It's almost looking like a joke at this point.
For you, it was a bit too forward, and clearly, as we've seen, it has led to his suspension. So would you have subscribed to an independent body to carry out the probe instead of the Senate being a party to the issue? Was it fair and credible in terms of the process, culminating to where there was an allegation up to the point where it was dismissed?
No, first thing first, I think the right thing whenever there's an issue is you create separation first. Whether it's marriage, you create separation. Whether it's in the Senate, you create separation, business, you create separation. Someone has a case to answer and then is asked steps aside temporarily. So I think that decision is the right decision, right? But then again, moving on, is the Senate cannot be a judge and a jury in their own case, right? And also be the audience and everything else. Clearly, there's a accusation, right? And that accusation affects the Senate itself, so they cannot be the judge and the jury. So clearly, there has to be a need for an independent body or independent auditor or researcher, whatever it is. But the problem with that is how independent can that person be, since we know how the country works. And don't forget that practitioners will always be smarter than regulators in Nigeria in any field. What I would suggest is, yes, there's a need for an independent review that does have them in the Senate, provided that person does not compromise. I would even want to say that it has to be an international review team. And the reason for that is same thing that happens in elections. You have what you call international observers, not necessarily because you want to question your sovereignty as a country, but because you want people who don't have deep lining in terms of compromise because they have something to gain, right? They're literally not stakeholders internally. And that's what I think has to happen next. But we all know this is a charade. It's like a chess game. This time you're not even looking at checkmates, you're looking at grandstanding. There's a lot of grandstanding. I don't see this happening. The word budget padding has been in our vocabularies for as long as 1999, from the times of the first the Obasanjo's dispensation. So budget padding is something that we have become so used to. We are sort of dealing with learned helplessness here. We're so used to things being bad that we normalize it. I'm sure nothing will come out of this, honestly. And it's so sad. It's so sad because in the end, there's only one victim, and that's the Nigerian people.
Yes, so that is the bone of contention for me, because when we talk about normalization of situations like this, we may begin to start asking ourselves if that should be what should obtain. A lot of people have actually even trivialized the matter, and whether or not the Senate in its majesty have decided to go the routes they've taken. The bottom line is Budgit has come out to corroborate the claim that about 3.7 trillion naira has no basis in terms of project allocation. And this is the thing, budget padding has gone on since 2016, according to what I know. And we also need to ask the question, if that is right, because if that had gone on for years without it coming to light or it being attended to, remember that during that is the 9th Senate, this issue came up until it was buried. If it's not constitutionally backed, why is it that there's no due diligence or something being done to critically look at this matter and deal with it, because it's Nigeria's money being fizzled away?
Yeah, but remember the people who are supposed to regulate, also the practitioners. Who polices the Senate? I think that's a question to ask, one. But I don't want to be technical. If you look at the concept of budget padding, in the concept of budget in itself, whether it's macroeconomics, whether it's corporate finance or it's accounting, when you have cost elements in your budget, right, especially in a very uncertain economy as Nigeria, right, with inflation and all that, right, there's something you want to put that is called the contingency reserve, right, where, okay, maybe your total budget is, say, 25 trillion, and you want to put a contingency reserve of, say, let me say 2%, right, 10% or whatever, say 10%, right? Now, what you find out is that it's not abnormal, actually not abnormal to slightly have a margin, right, that is not accounted for in a cost element tangibly, right? What the problem is what that thing is being used for, and if people were officially told, especially the key stakeholders. So naturally, it was your business, and you were to go to market and then 20 billion, and then you got 22 billion, supposed to declare. And then if at the end of, because you put that uncertainties around forex, uncertainty around other things that might go wrong. But if that money is not used, it's not your money, you're supposed to return it back to the system and say, this is my contingency reserve, it was not used. But we know that never happens, right? We never go back to return money, right? So what Seun Onigbinde said was totally in order. There is a time where you can have, there's a possibility where you can have money that is in a budget that is not specifically tied or accounted to for anything, but it has to have a name, right? So in the case I've called it a contingency reserve, what you call it in project management, there has to be a name for it, and people need to declare and know that that's what it's for. But for you to go behind, and if that's what the claim is, then that's a real claim, right? And I'm also worried with the fact that the statement that some senators got more money than others based on the seniority level. I don't even understand what that means. And we're not sharing family property with the first son has have more money. How do you give people more money based on how long they stay in the Senate as against how big the other metrics, like how big their constituency is, how much need their constituency are in need of, and even sometimes affirmative action, who are the ones that are more disadvantaged. So when you look at that, you know that it's really in Nigerian term, a parapet type government. And that even brings us to another conversation. But in the end, right, contingency reserve is a thing. The problem is how it is being propagated and how it's being executed.
Yeah. So, well, some people might consider it as a family money. It's just that probably some people are more family than others. Eizu, Uwaoma, thank you so much for talking to us.